It is Wednesday, August 19th, 2026, and we left off on Exodus 13, verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, "Consecrate to me all the firstborn. Whatever is the first to open the womb among the people of Israel, both of man and of beast, is mine." When Moses said to the people, "Remember this day in which you came out from Egypt, out of the house of..." Actually, I have a question. What does that mean? So, in the context of the Old Testament times, I can understand that the firstborn of a beast would mean that'll be a burnt offering to God. But what does it mean that a firstborn human child would be God's in this context? Is that like priesthood, perhaps? But I think that came from the Levites. I don't know. Or was isolated to Levi's line. In Exodus 13:2, the firstborn is mine does not mean that Israel was supposed to sacrifice its firstborn children as burnt offerings. Okay, understood. Human firstborns belong to God in a different sense. They were consecrated to him and had to be redeemed rather than killed. The rest of Exodus 13 makes that distinction explicit. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. Okay, so what does that mean? Why did the firstborn belong to God? This command comes immediately after the Passover and the Exodus from Egypt. On the night of the 10th plague, God struck Egypt's firstborn but spared Israel's firstborn through the blood of the Passover lamb. So God essentially declares afterward, "I spared these firstborn from death, therefore they belong especially to me." God explains this connection later. He says, "For all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I consecrated for my own all the firstborn in Israel. Both of man and of beast, they shall be mine. I am the Lord." So, is mine means set apart / consecrated as God's possession, not must be killed as an offering. Okay, so what does it mean? What actually happened to a firstborn son? There were different treatments depending on what was firstborn. So a clean sacrificial animal was offered to God. Certain animals could not be sacrificed, so they were redeemed with another animal or otherwise dealt with according to the law. Numbers 18:15-16 later specifies a redemption payment for firstborn sons. And there's an interesting development after Exodus. Instead of every firstborn Israelite male being personally devoted to sanctuary service, that's what I thought it meant, God takes the tribe of Levi as a substitute for Israel's firstborn males. "Behold, I have taken the Levites from among the people of Israel instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the people of Israel. The Levites shall be mine." Okay, so that does mean in service of God, but later on in Numbers, the book of Numbers, God changes the arrangement, the covenant. Okay, so that's interesting. All right, the substitution is important. Originally, the firstborn represents the family as belonging to God. Okay. So in short, belonging to God meaning in service of him. But later on he changes this, and that's why the Levites were the only ones that were allowed to be priests back then. Okay, so basically, yes. Okay, so now that we have that understanding, verse 3, "Then Moses said to the people, 'Remember this day in which you came out from Egypt, out of the house of slavery, for by a strong hand the Lord brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten.'" let's also ask about that, because that's also interesting. What is the deal with? What was the issue with eating leavened bread? Why the distinction of eating unleavened bread? The issue wasn't the leaven itself was inherently sinful. In Exodus 13, the distinction between leavened and unleavened bread is primarily about remembering the circumstances and meaning of Israel's deliverance from Egypt. Okay, so it's symbolic. Okay. Number one, they left Egypt so quickly there was no time for bread to rise. Okay, so in remembrance of. Okay. All right. Let's see. Verse 4. Today in the month of Abib, you are going out. And when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. No leavened bread shall be seen with you, and no leaven shall be seen with you in all your territory. You shall tell your son on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. And it shall be to you as a sign on your hand and as a memorial between your eyes, that the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. Okay, I see. Okay. For with a strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this statute at its appointed time from year to year. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and shall give it to you, you shall set apart to the Lord all that first opens the womb. All the firstborn of your animals that are males should be the Lord's. Every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. Every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. Also, I guess donkeys were not an acceptable sacrifice. You shall redeem with the lamb, or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. Okay. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. And when in time to come your son asks you, what does this mean? You shall say to him, by a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt from the house of slavery. For when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of animals. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all the males that first open the womb. But all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. It shall be as a mark on your hand or frontlets between your eyes. For by a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. But God led the people around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. And the people of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt equipped for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones with you from here. Oh, so they did. Okay, I thought they just left him there. That's cool. So they did remember to keep their promise to him. Okay, and they moved on from Succoth and encamped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of Pi Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal-zephon. You shall encamp facing it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the people of Israel, they are wandering in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord." And they did so. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed toward the people. And they said, "What is this we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" So he made ready his chariot and took his army with him, and took 600 chosen chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel, while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamped at the sea by Pi Hahiroth in front of Baal-zephon. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." And Moses said to the people, "Fear not, stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." The Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they shall go in after them, and I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." Then the angel of God who was going before the host of Israel moved and went behind them. Then the angel of the Lord who was going before the host of Israel moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. So I think, so, wait. So this implies that this is, because I'm trying to highlight all of the Christophanies that get mentioned in the Old Testament, meaning Jesus sightings, if you will, pre-incarnate Jesus sightings. So this implies that pillar was Jesus, or a manifestation of him, I think. This seems to imply that the pillar of cloud and fire that guided the people of Israel by day and night was actually a Christophany. Yes. Exodus 14:19 is one of the passages that gives substantial biblical support to identifying the angel of God, or the angel of the Lord, with the divine presence itself, and therefore, in Christian interpretation, potentially as a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. What's especially striking is the parallelism. It says, "Then the angel of God who was going before the host of Israel moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them." The angel and the pillar perform the same movement. That could mean the angel is present in or manifested through the pillar, rather than the pillar being merely an atmospheric sign traveling independently. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back. Verse 20. Coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel, and there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other all night. Then Moses stretched his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning watch, the Lord in the pillar of fire and of cloud looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled to it, the Lord threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. So what do I want to ask here? I think it's just one of those things that always pops into my head that I like to ask about. Let's see. How do theologians explain God's actions towards the Egyptians during this time? It seems, or it's easy to assume, that they are evil, or that they perhaps were for some reason justifiably killed in these situations. But what does it say about God's purpose, or rather the purpose of these human lives, and how they stack up to the value of the lives of the people of Israel at this time? Would there have been any hope for any of the Egyptians of the time to actually be saved? That is one of the hardest moral and theological questions in Exodus, and Exodus itself gives more material for answering it than this. And Exodus itself gives more material for answering it than is sometimes acknowledged. A crucial distinction is this: the story does not present Egyptian lives as having less intrinsic value than Israelite lives. It presents God as judging an oppressive regime while rescuing an enslaved people. And at several points, it explicitly leaves room for Egyptians to recognize Israel's God and even join the people being rescued. Okay, so that's interesting. And that's the interesting part, because it says it right here. When the soldiers, some of them obviously recognized what was going on, so it's not like they're mindless drones, so to speak. Okay, number one, the Egyptians are not killed simply because they are Egyptians. By Exodus 14, Israel has been enslaved for generations. Pharaoh's government has subjected them to forced labor and earlier ordered the killing of Hebrew sons. The army at the sea is not a random collection of Egyptian civilians. Pharaoh has mobilized his chariot and military officers to recapture people who have just escaped slavery. So when the soldiers say, "Let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians," the immediate theological point is not Israelite lives matter, Egyptian lives don't. It is that the military power of the oppressor has encountered a power it cannot overcome. There is also deliberate irony here. Pharaoh once commanded that Hebrew boys be thrown into the Nile. Now Pharaoh's own military force is swallowed by water. Many Jewish and Christian interpreters therefore understand the sea as an act of both liberation and judgment. But that doesn't make the deaths morally trivial. The text doesn't require us to regard dead Egyptians as worthless people. In fact, Exodus says God's purpose involves the Egyptians knowing him. Oh, that's interesting. So this is perhaps the most important detail for your question. God repeatedly says something striking. He says, "So that the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord." That is different from saying, "I want to destroy Egyptians because I prefer Israelites." Okay, so really, and that's a fair point. So it's really more, he's destroying the oppressive regime, and so since I say we as in like myself and hopefully the audience, since we trust God and know God to be a just God, then we can make the assumption that those that, through God and his sovereign will, and we've already read plenty of instances of God's ability to influence people's behavior, like when the Egyptians were giving the Israelites their silver and gold, which why would they do that? They were compelled to do that by God. So anyway, my point is we can make the assumption that those who had evil in their hearts were the ones that were killed alongside Pharaoh. But otherwise, this regime's overthrow was just as much, the purpose was just as much to protect the Israelites as it was to also show the rest of Egypt and all its people that he is the one true God. And then they would have still had a chance to be saved. Okay. All right, so we got there. I had to just do some mental gymnastics there. All right. Okay, where were we? But the people of Israel, verse 29, but the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. So I'm just curious here. This is not really a spiritual question. I'm just curious. Just out of curiosity, if we go back to that time when the Egyptians were killed, would their death have been instant? Like, would their bodies have been crushed? I can only imagine that if the entire seabed was, or if the entire sea was split down to the seabed and then suddenly the waters were released, would they have drowned or would they have been crushed by the sheer weight of all that water, just physically speaking? That's a little bit morbid, but I'm just curious what that would have done. I would think you would get crushed. I mean, that's like trillions of tons, billions, who knows? Billions of tons of water. Yes, if we treat Exodus account as describing a literal physical event and ask only what the mechanics would have been, drowning is much more plausible than being instantly crushed by the weight of the water. Oh, okay, so not crushed. The key detail is that water pressure doesn't work quite like a giant solid wall falling on someone. at a given depth, the pressure depends on the sea. The pressure depends on the depth of the water above you, not the total amount of water in the sea. Okay, no, it's not taking my point. I'm saying, like, if you imagine you take a bucket of water and you go up on a ladder and then you dump it on somebody. There's some force behind that water because the water has weight to it. So, I'm just saying, if you drop an entire sea on somebody suddenly, because it's saying it's standing up like walls on the left and the right, and then suddenly it falls, and presumably these are like hundreds of feet high because you're splitting an entire ocean. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Suddenly I realize it doesn't really matter. Okay, the Lord, so the people feared. Where was that? Verse 30. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Exodus 15, verse 1. Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord, saying, I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host he cast into the sea, and his chosen officers were sunk in the Red Sea. The floods covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shatters the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrow your adversaries. You send out your fury, it consumes them like stubble. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The floods stood up in a heap. The deeps congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake. I will divide the spoil. My desire shall have its fill of them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand. The earth swallowed them. You have led in your steadfast love the people whom you have redeemed. You have guided them by your strength to your holy abode. The peoples have heard, they tremble. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Now are the chiefs of Edom dismayed. Trembling seizes the leaders of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. Terror and dread fall upon them because of the greatness of your arm. They are still as a stone. Till your people, O Lord, pass by. Till the people pass by whom you have purchased. You will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, the place, O Lord, which you have made for your abode, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever. For when the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought back the waters of the sea upon them, but the people of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea. Then Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. Then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. So there's another question that I have here that is semi-related, or I guess it's related. but it strikes me as interesting, so I want to ask about it. Let's see. It seems like in the Old Testament, specifically, there are mentions where magicians, for example, in Egypt, were able to match some of the things that God gave Moses to do as miracles, like turning the staff into a snake, or matching some of the other plagues. Why do the theologians think it is that God allows... Well, actually, I'm making an assumption that it is by demons that these magicians are able to do these things. And so I can also make the assumption that even now in the modern world, demons still have some level of power, as does Satan. But there's obviously an upper limit to the amount of natural wonder that they're able to enact. What do the theologians say about this and the limit that's placed on demonic power and the showings of God's power? Yes, the pattern you're noticing in Exodus has generated a substantial amount of Jewish and Christian theological reflection because the text seems deliberately to distinguish between real but subordinate spiritual power and the unique sovereign power of God. One important qualification first, Exodus itself does not explicitly say that the Egyptian magicians were empowered by demons. But I mean, I honestly wouldn't take any other explanation. It simply says that Pharaoh's magicians duplicated certain signs by their secret arts. The interpretation that demonic or spiritual powers were involved becomes especially prominent in later Christian theology. Other interpreters have proposed trickery, occult practices, which the occult, that would still be demonic in nature, or some combination of genuine supernatural activity and deception. Because we know, if there are no other gods, there is no other God other than God, so if it's not of God, then it's demonic. Period. There's no in between. That part at least is fairly, or not fairly, it is black and white. All right, but if we take the traditional Christian interpretation that at least some of this was genuine demonic activity, the basic theological answer is surprisingly consistent, which is Satan and demons possess genuine created powers, but they possess no independent divine power. Whatever they can do is finite, derivative, and ultimately subject to God's permission and providence. The Egyptian magicians are almost a miniature demonstration of that principle. The progression in Exodus is fascinating. Moses and Aaron turn the staff into a serpent. Pharaoh's magicians apparently do the same. So we read through that. So they were able to match that feat, but then Aaron's staff swallowed up their staff, so his snake ate theirs. That detail matters enormously. The confrontation isn't presented as two equal supernatural forces fighting against each other. The magicians can imitate the sign, but the sign given by God overwhelms theirs. And then that pattern continues. Okay, I was just curious, but yeah, that's it's very interesting. All right, where was I? Shoot, what verse was that? Exodus 15:21. Verse 22. Then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore it was named Marah. And the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" And he cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a log. and he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. There the Lord made for them a statue and a rule. Then there the Lord made for them a statute, not a statue, a statute and a rule. And there he tested them, saying, if you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do which is right in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water. All right, so I think that's a good stopping point for tonight. So we'll pick it up tomorrow on Exodus 16, verse 1. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to drop a sub, share it with a friend. God bless you guys, and good night.